If you've been watching this channel, you know that what I try and do is inspire attorneys and law firms to start leaning into AI, to inspire lawyers, paralegals, judges, law clerks, etc., to really begin their journey of training on these tools, to understand that the skills required to interact with AI tools effectively and get upskilled from 3x to 10x to 50x. Those skills are not easy. They take tremendous time and commitment. And it's not likely your employer who is going to provide that level of training. You need to do it, and you need to do it every evening and every weekend. You need to spend many tens of hours every single week when you're not working learning how to use AI, because your 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 job, your company that you work for, yes, they probably have an interest in getting you skilled up, but it's your job that's on the line. It's you who is at risk. And we're starting to see the reasons why this is really true. And so we've seen really this lag of companies trying to figure out, how am I going to train employees? What is my level of commitment? At what point do I start training? What do I train them on? All of these different issues companies are dealing with, and most companies, and certainly most law firms, are doing very little, if anything. But we're starting to see a turn in the market about the consequences, not to law firms, but to lawyers who don't upskill their AI tools, who don't upskill their talent, their strategies, their mentality. So if you are not already highly skilled in using AI tools, it may be too late for you based on what we're seeing happening today in the market, based on what big law firms and eventually medium law firms and smaller firms are going to do, which is to give up on training. They're not going to try and train you. That is a much different narrative than what we've been on this channel talking about for so long, and certainly what we've been seeing in the market, which is this big effort to try and figure out, how do we train our people up? What do we train them at? So most people think about layoffs as cost cutting, and we've heard that AI is going to take jobs. There's going to be fewer people, fewer lawyers, fewer paralegals, fewer law clerks necessary to get the legal work done, and that layoffs are coming. And it'll be a cost-cutting measure because law firms won't have the revenue to support those large staffs, or won't be able to compete against other law firms who are doing 5x the quality of work with 1/10 the staff. Well, here's what we recently saw with Accenture. Accenture just proved that there are now strategies being implemented by large corporations that are not just about cutting costs, that there's this added component of time. So cutting costs is certainly something that companies always think about, but this is the first time we've really seen a company such as Accenture take such a drastic action based not only on cutting costs, but on the time frame by which they believe they have to get something done, and that something is AI. So yes, they eliminated over 11,000 jobs in the past 3 months. The number is not unusual. We see companies doing those kinds of massive layoffs on occasion. What's shocking is why they did it and how they're transforming their workforce. The why, the strategy behind these 11,000 layoffs is really something that I have not seen before. And here is why it is important for lawyers and law firms to know about it, to know what it happened with Accenture and why it happened, because we're going to start to see it across other industries that are similar to consulting and law and many other industries as well. So here's the quote from Accenture's CEO, Julie Sweet. She said, "We are exiting on a compressed timeline. We are exiting on a compressed timeline. People were reskilling based on our experience is not a viable path for the skills we need." Let me break that up. we're operating on a compressed timeline, and that reskilling, trying to train our employers is no longer a viable, or our employees is no longer a viable option. That based on what's happening in the market, the simple act of training up their employees to become highly skilled at AI, to get that great work product, to get that efficiency, to get those cost savings, is no longer a viable path for the skills that Accenture needs. Take a second. The key words in the quote are compressed timeline. So they need to pivot to AI enabled workforces. They need to pivot to AI tools, to AI agents. And normally, a company having this technology innovation, this opportunity to compete at a higher level, to get a advantage on their competition, it occurs through, a lot of times it's through retraining and getting their employees up the ladder so they can do their jobs better. And that's what we've been talking about on this channel, is training lawyers and other legal professionals to be able to use these tools at a very high level, letting everyone understand that there is no upper limit on the skills that you can have, letting people understand that if you are highly skilled at using ChatGPT and some of these other tools, there's an infinite amount of skills on top of where you are that exist, and there is no limit to how you can upskill with AI. So let's just break it down. This compressed timeline means that they aren't just giving people years to adjust. They're not waiting to see who can catch up. The pace of AI innovation is so fast, and the competitive threat is so immediate, that retraining people who don't already have the skills is simply too slow. Too slow. So what is this strategy if we're not going to retrain people? We're going to fire people, and we're going to hire people who already have those skills. It's simple and brutal. Fire the people who don't already have AI skills and replace them with people who do. We've just now seen that it happened at Accenture. You're going to see other companies and law firms pick up on this strategy and realize that it doesn't make any sense to try and figure out who's in and who's out, who is going to have the right mindset to try and pivot, who's got the intellectual curiosity to want to use these tools, who's stuck in the mud and just adverse to change, and who's in on innovation and change. They're not going to go through the process. Law firms are going to, in 2026, just start firing anyone who doesn't already have the skills and hiring people who already do. That is a big wake-up call, and it's why I wanted to do this extended video, because that's not what I've been preaching. I've been trying to inspire people to get upskilled. I've been telling people, it's never too late. Go ahead, jump in now, but you got to dedicate yourself. You got to put in the time, and don't wait for your employer or your law firm to train you. This is about individual skills. This is about individual ability to compete. This is about individual amplification. Do law firms have an incentive to try and train people? Yes, but not nearly in the incentive that workers have to try and survive 2026, 2027. Now let's think about this. We've already been told that upskilling is part of the answer. Take time to learn, take time to pivot, and companies will invest in you. But this example with Accenture shows a very different reality is emerging. The timeline is moving faster than will allow for retraining. And this isn't happening at a factory. This is happening at one of the world's leading consulting firms, a business built on human capital, not machinery, which makes the parallel to law unmistakable. Large law firms face the exact same challenge. They will not spend years dragging lawyers, paralegals, and staff through slow training programs. The pressure is too high. People are too adverse to change from competitors, or their competitors are going to be adapting. And the moment those big firms start down this road of firing and rehiring AI-enabled people, you're going to see it really just steamroll. Other firms are going to notice, and other firms are going to say, yeah, I want to get a litigation associate attorney who already has better skills at using the AI tools that are relevant to lawyers than I do. So, clients, of course, are expecting better service and they're going to be expecting better quality. And they know that AI makes that possible. They've already seen it in the work product of AI enabled lawyers, and it's going to become more and more expected. The baseline for what a client wants for their money is going to go up, but not at a gradual pace, at an exponential pace. So what do firms do? I think they're gonna be smart to take a look at what Accenture is doing. And the challenge is going to be finding professionals, legal professionals, lawyers, paralegals, whatever, who already have skills. They're going to, if they can find those people, they are going to favor those people in hiring, and they are going to disfavor their current employees, and potentially they won't last. They're going to let people go and set AI skills as the baseline requirement for new hires. Now, it's important to note, Accenture is not abandoning training altogether. They've said they're still upskilling employees. They call these employees reinventors, the people they believe can evolve quickly enough to thrive in the AI age. Reinventors. They are going to be people who can reinvent themselves to be AI enabled. Reinventors. Interesting term. So let's be clear about this. They've drawn a line. If you aren't already close to the top tier of AI fluency, you're not worth the gamble to Accenture. And here's what this really means for you. We're not talking about knowing how to ask ChatGPT a question. That's table stakes. We're talking about understanding the technical basics of how these tools work. We're talking about building and deploying AI agents to handle parts of your workflow. We're talking about upskilling your project management skills as you become much more of a project manager. And some of the people you're managing are not people at all. They're AI agents that you've created because based on your needs or your understanding of your client that you've created using plain English and understanding how the tools can use plain English to create agents. And you've created these agents to go out and do jobs, and you're managing them. You're managing them. And you're doing it at volume. So no longer do I have one associate, I have 100 associates. Being a project manager is going to be key. Being an AI-enabled project manager is going to be key. These are the skill sets that will separate the reinventors from the replaced. This is the world we're now living in. Compressed timelines, existential threats, firms and companies that can no longer afford to wait. So ask yourself, if law follows consulting, and it will, are you going to be one of the reinventors? Are you going to be one of the exits? Or are you going to be the ones that be kept in place? Because in this new phase of AI, you don't have the luxury of time. The window to adapt is closing, and it's closing fast.